everybody, this is Tony.
And this is Paul. We're coming at you from the Friends for Life podcast, where we discuss the ongoing lives and issues of people with developmental disabilities to spark positive change in the field.
And we have a lot of fun doing it.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Friends for Life podcast. Thanks for tuning back in. Today, we have Kevin Fong with the Toledo Zoo, the Inclusion Strategy Coordinator. Kevin, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing excellent. It's a Thursday. We're getting the warm weather. I feel nice. You get out of that winter funk, and now you're able to just run around, throw a ball around.
Yes.
Enjoy everything.
Yeah, so backstory, we met at the Creators Community Services Ball, or Gala. And, we had arguably the coolest table at the event. We had a blast, and you were there to win an award. So before we get into the podcast, what was the award for?
Well, I wish it was for the coolest table. I mean, I don't even think you have to argue that. It was the coolest table.
Yeah. That was our award that we're giving to ourselves.
Yeah. So the award that I won at the gala was for inclusive hiring efforts at the Toledo Zoo. So a lot of what I've been trying to do the past couple of years is just make sure that a lot of our initiatives that are moving forward, whether it be through diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, a lot of times they forget the access part.
Yeah.
I think that's a brand new section that people are starting to realize that needs to have something. Mm-hmm. If you're creating, a product, for us it's the zoo, our conservation efforts and everything. That is going to take everybody. So you need the diversity. You need to make sure that everybody within that makes sure that they feel included, that you're giving them the equity to start them off where, everybody's at that equal point, realizing that not everybody's going to start at the same location, but, what resources can we give them in order to get to that point? But everybody forgets the access part. Mm-hmm. If people can't come to the zoo, then they can't enjoy the programs that we're trying to have set up for that. And that goes just for the guests, but the employees as well, both paid, full-time, senior staff members, seasonal, volunteers itself, all of them are supposed to be a part of that. And how can we make it accessible for everyone? A lot of my background is in disability studies and disability justice, and so that's pretty much where my heart is. And I want to make sure that we're having that access available for everyone.
So what drew you to wanting to do disability studies? Because UT has one of the best disability studies programs in the United States, possibly even the world. So what drew you to that to begin with?
So I didn't even know about UT's program until it had just started to pop up. I'm fairly young, but starting back as in second grade, my elementary school, I went to Larchmont. The teachers that I had at the moment, within Larchmont, there was a self-contained classroom. We had students with disabilities, but a lot of times, I think other elementaries at that time would keep those classrooms self-contained. They wouldn't have access to talking to people that are their own age. And at that point, they wanted other students to start having, those friendships, build those social skills for a lot of other people. And so we actually went to the Special Olympics with our classmates. So even that early on, it was interesting because I think so many times people build these stigmas of disability means inability, that you have to help them get to wherever it is, not realizing that everybody, regardless of being disabled or non-disabled, is going to have different strengths and needs. And I think even early on, our teachers and all our other classmates were starting to realize, it's no different. We're just friends. And that's what it started to build up. I've been at the zoo for a very long time. So I started as a volunteer in 2010. When I turned 13, I joined the zoo teen program. But even before then, my mom helped develop a lot of the summer camp programs. Mm-hmm. So I was just roaming around the zoo before I even hit double digits. Wow. I was just running around and felt like I owned the zoo. I didn't, but I learned everything. But the zoo teen program helped open up a lot of different opportunities. So it's not just on grounds. If you want to become a zookeeper, that's cool. You can get a lot of that experience working alongside keepers, working on grounds just to talk with the guests and build your knowledge. But they also gave opportunities to go off ground. So conservation work. We work with metro parks. Clean Your Streams is an annual event that we participate in with the teens. But one of the other areas was community service. So, we worked with a lot of different organizations, but two in particular that I had done a lot of volunteer work with was Josina Lot, now known as Manahan, and then the Autism Academy of Learning. And it just felt, comfortable because that was something that we had already started in second grade, and that became basically my bread and butter project. I wanted to go on that every single time, for bingo night over at Manahan, creating all those friendships with everybody. Autism Academy of Learning, like helping out the classrooms, but then, during gym, just play games. They had a full basketball court up in their attic.
Yeah.
So we would have full games, and that was a lot of fun. But throughout life, it just sort of developed, and I was creating all these friendships and these relationships with people that I still remember to this day and have meaningful conversations with. And then to see on the other side, if somebody hasn't even dabbled in disability studies or disability justice, anything to do with the disability community, they all have typically the same mindset of disability means inability. Mm-hmm. And I struggled with that. So even before I went back to the zoo as a part-time member in the volunteer department, I started working with Manahan. I worked at their day facility, River Crossings. Katie Garber was my boss at the time, and just created a great experience. All my coworkers, it was great to work alongside them and build relationships with not only them, but a lot of the people that went to that day facility were still the friends that I had made when I was a zoo teen. So it was really comfortable. But now I got to work with them in such a different manner, helping them develop their goals and what they wanted to accomplish. So that was really meaningful. That was the first time that, oddly enough, I was looking at careers in all other different places. I didn't really think of disability studies as something that I could do as a job. I always knew that people held positions in there, but I think because I'd been around it so long that it was just, these were my friends. I didn't really think beyond what I could do further to help them get to where they wanted to be, their aspirations. Having that position helped, develop a lot more. But then in 2020, right before the pandemic hit, I actually got to take over a position at the zoo, to become the volunteer accessibility supervisor and oversee at the time it was called SNAP, Special Needs and Advocate Partner Program. We rebranded so that way it would be a little more in line with what that program developed and evolved into being, ADAPT, right. Advocates for Disabilities and Partners team. And really that again, young, 25, but like I can already say that those 2 years that I had with all those teens was probably, it'll easily go down as one of the best jobs that I had, because I got to interact with so many unique individuals that had these goals and be able to see them develop strategies and just go out there and become advocates for themselves. To make time to talk with other guests and other colleagues that they had within the zoo team program and other staff members at the zoo. Right. And become advocates for themselves to say, hey, disability doesn't mean inability. Everybody's going to have these different strengths and needs, and they can do the job.
Heck yeah, man. Yeah. Dude, it's phenomenal to hear.
Yeah.
I think there are small sections of Northwest Ohio that are making valiant effort to really change the culture, the environment, and the temperature of these conversations. And it's getting done. So, man, kudos to you for starting off early and continuing to strive and push forward. Being a long-time zoo goer myself, I love the song. Like, no one can ever not replace that song. I didn't even know that there was accessibility for the train. The first time I took an individual, I was like, man, I would love for him to be able to ride a train, and somebody had to point it out. Do you find a lot of people are like that? They're kind of dumbfounded, like they've been coming to the zoo for many, many years, but they never thought of those kind of scenarios. And when they do think of it, like, how are you guys helping to point it out? Like, hey, you can take this accessibility route. You can do this and that.
Yeah, definitely. I think before we didn't really do a good job of putting on social media or our website or just in general when people were coming to let them know about the accessibility options that we had. And it's definitely grown over the past years. I mean, the train, as long as it's been there, it's had a wheelchair option. It's been there. But, I think for anybody that, again, hasn't been involved in the community, they're not going to stop and take a look and think of that as being inclusive or, have that be a part of the access. So we've been getting better about it, and we know that there's still room for improvement, but now we have an accessibility page on our website. It's at the very bottom. If you scroll all the way down, you can click it. Has every single thing that we have available. Wow. So all our older items that we had, wheelchairs, scooter access, what is our accessibility for our rides, etc. But knowing that we can expand beyond that. So we have sensory bags, something that a lot of people didn't know until we started advertising that. It was only word of mouth, but that's important for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean, regardless of disability, if you're non-disabled, everybody is susceptible to having sensory overload. And those sensory bags have items that are in there that, can be proactive about, those situations that can be uncomfortable for people. Yeah. We recently got an app, a sensory inclusive app. We worked with a company out in Chicago called Infiniteach, who one of the co-founders is actually from the greater Toledo area. So that was fun to work with Infiniteach and create this app so that way we can develop more strategies that, while yes, they have somebody specifically in mind, for the app itself, people with sensory processing disorders, autism spectrum disorder. It's built within universal design and anybody can use it. It's going to be helpful for everybody. Those social narratives talk about how you can go to the zoo, how do you purchase tickets, waiting in line. Every single exhibit on that app, or every exhibit that we have within the zoo is on that app and has a social narrative to talk about, what animals are going to be there. What could you expect? What are the different things that you have? But also communication charts, tips and tricks, knowing when those low sensory hours are going to be. I could probably talk all day about the different things that we have right now, but the sensory map is also on there on the website. People can pull that up and see what places are going to be really loud, what places are going to be really smelly, because you know what? We have animals. It's going to get smelly. Sometimes that throws people off, but we want to make sure that we have an experience that is accessible to everyone.
That is, man, that is awesome. I want to kind of turn this into another. Okay, I was sitting and wondering. I was watching a movie a while back, and it was with a dolphin who had to get a prosthetic tail. Does the Toledo Zoo have any animals with disabilities? And if so, are there anything, like what kind of special needs have they had to have, or, special equipment?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's a great question. So there's a couple that I can think of right off the top of my head. So the eagle exhibit, when you first walk into the zoo, that's the nursery roost. So there's actually a law, and I could be mistaken on it, but I believe this is true. There's actually a law that you can't own a bald eagle unless it has been injured and it can't, it needs accommodations in order to, thrive. It has those different strengths and needs. So, our bald eagles, anytime that we have a bald eagle that comes in, is going to have some form of disability, whether that be physical or developmental. I mean, disability is a natural occurrence in every single person's life. I think that's why, you can't really put a label on it. Everybody has the experience. It's a natural human experience to be disabled. It's something at any point anybody can experience. But it's the same for animals. Tinker sea turtle was actually hit by a boat and had to go in and have surgery. So if you actually ever go in, Tink the sea turtle has a weight that is on the back of the shell. That's because when the boat hit, cracked the shell, but every single time that it would try to heal, the air would actually get trapped in, and it still gets trapped in there. So I think the medical term for it is called bubble butt. But so they put the weight on there to counteract it. So Tink has a physical disability, but we've found the accommodations. We've found what works best, and now Tink the sea turtle can thrive.
We're bridging the gap between humans and other species on this podcast. Wow, that was Tony's getting better at hosting the show, man.
I've been trying,
But I have experience in previous jobs working with the zoo teens, and They do awesome work, and I'm sure it's like working with any other group of teenagers. They're teenagers, so that can be exciting. So for people that are listening, maybe that have kids that want to be a zoo teen, disabled or not, what is the Zoo Teen program all about? Because I know they do tons of work, not only at the zoo, but in the community at large, which is super important for a teenager.
Yeah, so the Zoo Teen program is a volunteer program for ages 13 to 18. Anybody that's interested within that age group can join. So it's an application process. The program itself is really unique. I don't think there's really many other volunteer programs, within other zoos, they're not as developed as the Toledo Zoo Team program. Mm-hmm. So it's a career opportunity. From the start, how the teens have to apply. They have to go online. They have to fill out an application. They send that in. They come to an info session. They learn about what opportunities are available to them. After that, we interview them. A lot of the folks that we have come in, that is their first interview, and it is really daunting. Which is okay. We understand that.
Yeah.
We all get there. I remember when I was 13 and interviewing, and I knew a lot of the people that were already in the Zoo Team program, and I was still like shaking and sweating, and I was like, oh my gosh. So it's a brand new opportunity for a lot of people, but those are skills that you need to develop. So we start immediately, right even before they get accepted into the program. But once they get accepted, they go through a training process. We make sure that they have everything available to them, disabled, non-disabled. So the same thing. Our ADAPT program is within the Zoo Team program, but it's really no different. Mm-hmm. The only thing that's different is that we work with them to build goals. We sit down with them. We teach them about zone of proximal development. Teach them CBT, making sure that they understand where a lot of their emotional triggers. It's building up that emotional intelligence so that way they can understand, what's going on. How can they develop a goal that's going to be right within range that challenges them enough but isn't too easy. Building a lot of those soft, hard skills that are important for life. So once you become a zoo teen, there's just so many different options. Like I said, on grounds, education. We work with education staff within the exhibits themselves. So the sturgeon touch tank that we have in the museum, they oversee that. They give the rules. They tell all the guests what they have to do. They teach them about, our conservation efforts for lake sturgeon. Same within the aquarium. They can do house guiding. So house guiding is talking in front of the exhibit and talking about the animal. What are the adaptations that they have? Where are they located? What is their diet? How do they fit into the diverse ecosystem of the world that we live in? There's a lot of different opportunities. So if they do really well, then they get rewarded. Keepers have these special projects that they need to have go on. So when I was a zoo teen, I actually got to make the salt water in the aquarium, which was awesome. Yes. You don't really think about anything.
See that water? That's me right there.
Yeah. Like you
pH balance on point.
You can just stand there the entire time and like, yeah, I did that for you, fish. Yeah.
Every time you breathe, you think of me.
Enrichment, so animal behavior programs are a staple within zoos to make sure that the animals aren't bored. Enrichment, we want to make sure that they have things that help them exhibit their natural behaviors in the wild. So the teens themselves actually get to help out, make paper mache balloons. A lot of times whenever we have the Stomp and Chomp or Pumpkin Path, anytime that the elephants or any other animal, not just the elephants, they get these special items, the teens can actually help out. So the giraffes will sometimes get watermelon bombs. So it's just a watermelon and you take carrots and then you just stab the watermelon with the carrots. It's great. It's great fun.
Yeah.
But beyond that, they're a staple within the community, making sure that they're getting all these different experiences. Every single teen can choose what they want to do. So we work with food banks, Northwest Ohio Food Bank, Manahan. We still work with them, all the time. All the different conservation projects that go on. I'm forgetting. I know it's a prairie. It's near King Road. When I was a zoo teen,
Irwin Prairie. Irwin?
Yeah, I believe so. There was a lot of invasive species. Sassafras was the invasive species. So when we were there, we were cutting down a lot of these, and then over time, throughout my zoo teen career, we got to see it grow and change and become have a lot of those native species, those native plant lives, and then animals started coming back in. That was really cool to see, and that's still what's going on at the teen program. They're developing all the time, and I think what is truly unique about the program is that a lot of these ideas, a lot of these projects were the ideas of the teens themselves. Us as the staff that were there, we just listened to them. What did they want to do?
Yeah.
And then if they didn't have the plan for it, then we would work alongside them to say, hey, this is what we would do. This is how we outreach to them. This is how we get the ball rolling. And it's so good to see. I think a lot of times people underestimate the power of teens.
Yeah.
They're the next generation. Why are we excluding them or why are we not giving them voice to say, what's going to be best for them? How silly is it for us to say, this is what's going to be best for you and not listen to them at all? So the zoo teens actually do get to have a say on what they want to see and what they want to develop, and they get to see what they created. That's so rewarding at such a young age.
Yeah, I think so. It's almost therapy, which goes into my next question. Does the zoo offer any kind of like therapy or, sessions? It's been proven that when you spend time with animals and y'all develop a bond, it can be therapeutic. Does the zoo offer anything like that for, mental health, or is it more of just like a personal approach?
Sure. Currently, right now, we don't have any programs, but something that we're trying to do is develop sensory inclusion days. Okay. So days where we dim down the lights if they're too bright. We turn off the sounds because, as much as everybody loves the bridge and the I Love My Zoo song, sometimes that can be a lot for somebody.
Yeah.
So turn that down, but also just, have options that are available that are going to be sensory friendly. Yeah. So, we do realize that. There's been many times where I get to walk around on grounds in the morning and just... you get to see the animals just do what they do, and that is really therapeutic. You just stand around, and then, oh my gosh, an hour passes by, and like, I'm late for a meeting. I don't know what do I tell them? That I was just watching the octopus kind of swim around? Yeah. We all get it. So we realize that there is those opportunities. It is therapeutic. It's really nice to see animals, and just it's a learning opportunity too, whether you know it or not, even if you're not taking in all that information. Mm-hmm. So sensory inclusion days are definitely something that we want to develop. We're working right now to make sure that it's not just, a program where we do turn down the lights a little bit. Or turn off the sounds. We want it to be much more. Again, that's the equity part. Gotcha. Yeah, we want to make sure that, if people are coming for these sensory inclusion days, probably means that they haven't been coming to the zoo beforehand, which means they're missing out on a lot of the education materials. They're not able to make enrichment. They're not able to meet some of the animals that we have in our EAC, the animals that come out where it can actually be a touch opportunity, an interaction point. We want to make sure that it is a day that is equitable for people that have not been able to come to the zoo before, because we do understand, that the zoo is therapeutic. It should be accessible for all.
All right, I got a little game for you.
Okay,
and you answer it however, but I want to put a couple of things out there, and I want to see how you respond to them. If I have a disability, if I can't see visually, what would you recommend? What would be the first place that you recommend for me to go in the zoo?
Oh, we have sighted guides. So even if you have low vision or blindness, if you need some assistance, we have sighted guides that are trained. So they can lead you on a guided 2-hour tour. The zoo teams participate in that, and some of the adult volunteers, they can actually help you around the zoo, make sure that you can maneuver it physically. But also, whenever we get to the exhibit, if you haven't been able, if you can't see what is in front of you in the exhibit, they can visually describe it to you.
Nice.
Paint the picture, make it unique. Not just what is the conservation, what is that animal. Actually describe, the different textures. What does the exhibit look like? How are they maneuvering through that exhibit itself? Another area that I could say, it's very sensory rich. There's a lot more going on. There's a lot of interaction points. The museum itself, there's a lot of different sound opportunities. There's a lot of educators that are within there. But the main hall, when you walk through, there's a lot of molds. There's a lot of different activities. The zoo teams have activity carts in there. So again, a lot of interactive points where you can physically touch an item, even a live animal too.
Well, you know what? Because in the aquarium, my kids always go and they touch all the little fishies and stuff that they're allowed to touch. What was the stingray and all of that?
Yeah.
I've never done it. I'm freaked out. I still run from squirrels. So they're like, but this year Paul has really opened my eyes to a lot of nature, and I'm trying to be better at taking on new experiences. So I'm going to touch a stingray this year. I promise to do that.
No, the sturgeon are way cooler.
It's a toss-up for me, honestly. I mean, both touch tanks are really cool. But yeah, I mean, the aquarium, there's a lot of different other animals in there. So each animal is going to have a different feel to it. Like sharks, a lot of people don't realize that sharks, their skin is sort of like sandpaper.
Yeah.
Nobody really realizes it. The same with tigers, their tongues. So most big cats, their tongues are coarse and rough, which is why it's effective when they lick themselves and clean.
Yeah.
So we actually had an artist make a model of those. So we try to have those different biofacts or different interactive points like the touch tank, so that way people can get adventurous if they want to, and find out different ways that the animals function.
That's awesome. And
But we can't go fishing in there.
No, you can't go fishing. I would highly advise not to fish in the aquarium. You might run into some trouble there.
This is a great conversation for me because I have my own podcast and I pretty much deal in conservation. So like getting to do both worlds in one podcast is really fun for me. And one of the things I'll say that the Toledo Zoo has done really awesomely is you have the exhibit in the museum of like local wildlife, which I think is amazing. The sturgeon tank is amazing. If anybody is not aware, like sturgeon used to be very common and now they're not so common around here. So, I mean, for me, getting to touch a sturgeon was a sensory experience in and of itself. I was like, these are amazing, like prehistoric fish that I got to like just put my hands in. I was probably in the tank a little too long for everyone else's comfort, but I was just in there like, oh yeah, this is great. So you guys are doing awesome. And around here, we all know that the Toledo Zoo is great. But I think a lot of people think of the Toledo Zoo as just this local zoo and it's real fun to go to for a day trip. Like you guys are a huge organization. Like you're one of the leading zoos in the country.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of zoos in the country. I mean, we have a really special zoo. And one of the things that Tony and I have got to notice on this podcast is talking to so many people from so many different areas. We had Katie Shelley on from the Toledo Art Museum, who has a similar job to you there. We're also at our table at this event. So
cool kids.
Toledo's kind of doing a big charge with like being inclusive with disabilities and stuff right now. What do you think about that? Because you're part of that. Right now, you're part of the community that's making that change. So how do you feel about that overall?
Yeah, isn't it great?
It's amazing.
So back to the history of what got me into disability studies is, I mean, I feel like I've been around it for a long time. I mean, my entire life. Something that we've always had discussions with other people, but it's brand new to them. I think DEAI, just in general, since the George Floyd incident, has taken such a large monumental leap. It's in everybody's mind. It's conversations that they know are going to make them uncomfortable at first, but they know that it's important to have.
Right.
And it's no different for people with disabilities. 1 in 4 Americans have disabilities, and that means, at the intersectionality of race, gender identity, disability is a part of that. I think it's really important that we keep this going. I think a lot of times, especially now with social media, people will stick on a topic and they'll be like, yeah, this is interesting. They'll be interested for about a month and then they'll walk away. But what's so cool now is that since Toledo has taken that, every single organization within the city, the major organizations, the Toledo Museum of Art, the Metro Parks, the library, all these different organizations see that and they keep releasing programs, they keep making it, and they make it public so that way everybody can see the access part. They're keeping that momentum going and they're involving people into that conversation. And that's what I absolutely love. So many times before, people would say, yes, this is what we need to do. And then get into a room, close the door, and they'd talk about it. They'd maybe create a strategic plan for it, but they wouldn't give a seat at the table to the people that it was supposed to be for.
Right.
I mean, it's the same thing. IEPs, ISPs, throughout a lot of my time, sometimes the individual themselves that is supposed to be there to develop the goals and the strategies for themselves, they weren't included. That's kind of goofy. Why are we doing that? But now it really is, this conversation between everybody. The difference between realizing what access means, the difference between diversity and inclusion. You can be diverse but not inclusive. You need to have both. What is the difference between equality and equity? People are starting to have these conversations and starting to build this mindset, and all of that is trickling down. I mean, again, back to my point of like, people don't give teens enough credit for the knowledge that they have about the world and the systems that we have socially and personally. They all realize this. There's a couple of trainings that I give about disability awareness and etiquette, and sometimes they look at me and like, yeah, I know this.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, let's get more in depth. Let's create more. Let's actually sit down and think about this and involve the people that it affects the most. So it's really important. I am really excited to see that now, after 25 years of my life, that I'm now starting to see other people. It's not just people within the disability community that are all saying it. Because, we're preaching to the choir at that point.
Yeah.
We're all saying the same things. But now that other people are starting to learn about it, they can get involved. And it's so nice to have that. Because, yes, those trainings, if the teens themselves know it, I've had to give that training, to people that are much older, and that is brand new. Everybody's going to have a different starting point on where they're going to learn. And we're not, we can't shame somebody if their base knowledge is at 0%.
Yeah.
If they're reaching out and they're actually asking questions, then yes, it may not be, the correct thing to say, but they came to you. They came to you and asked the question. So now it is up to us to actually teach them, what is correct? What is the theory behind it? How can we help make it more accessible for everybody? DEAI just is that. That's the entire conversation. How can we involve everybody? Because it does take everybody.
And that's something that I say a lot too on my podcast. In the conservation and outdoors world, a lot of people complain about things like, I saw someone littering. And it's like, well, that's our job as people who care to like inform them. They obviously don't know or don't care. It's like, that's our responsibility, not everyone else's, and it's, that's something Tony and I talk about too, is like personal responsibility. Like, you can't just be mad at everybody. Like, nobody knows everything. It's impossible. We probably say things on this podcast sometimes that people are like, what the heck are they talking about? Because like, we don't know. We just get on here and talk, and maybe sometimes things we say aren't accurate, and it's good to have people like you come in and raise awareness. That's the whole point, is why this was started, is to raise awareness, because nobody's talking about this in the general public. We all talk about it to each other all the time. It's normal for us to talk about it.
So it looks almost like how the ADA was first formed to me, because although there was a law there, who's policing the law? Who's following it through? And it takes the community sometimes to be able to do that. I walked by the same Coke can twice yesterday, and I felt bad about myself because the third time I came back around and picked it up. But this was at a store that was down the street from my home that I didn't have to pick it up. They should have did it, but it's a part of my community. I want it to look nice, so why not do it? And I think that's where we're headed. We're getting more people to be community and village valuable versus, just me. 90% of our instinct is to just think about ourselves. But I think if we expand that, it'll do better for the community as a whole.
Yeah, sure. It's so easy because you've lived your entire life as you. You know your own perspective the best out of anybody, and it's so easy to walk past somebody on the street and judge them for the differences that they might have, but not many people stop to think about the entire life that they've lived. What has gotten them to that point? What is their perspective? Even twins born into the same family, there's going to be minor differences that they've had in their experiences that are going to change the perspective that they have. They're not going to be the same. So it does take a lot of that accountability for your own self. I think another thing that we've seen is that, people aren't just saying that they're allies. They're actually taking the next step to actually be an ally and stand up for people, even if they feel like they're not a part of, the group that they're standing up for. They're being an ally. They're speaking out for somebody because maybe somebody wasn't around. They're helping learn and build those different perspectives. That's
funny because the whole premise of what you guys were just talking about reminds me of this book I just finished reading. It was called How to Be Perfect, and it's like a comedic take on like philosophy and morality and stuff. And it's so funny that you say that, because it's like every person's perspective is different, and what's right and wrong or indifferent to you is just by person to person. There's no like guiding law of morality. And he goes through like every major moral philosopher in history, basically in a very succinct way. But at the end, he's basically like, listen, if it seems like it's a bad idea and it's going to hurt people, probably shouldn't do it. Like, it's what the book boils down to. Sorry to spoil it for anyone
Like the
listening.
Holocaust.
But that's how it is.
That's just, you're killing people. Like, let's stop.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just a point in passing I wanted to bring up there. But so this is a selfish question. The zoo is super awesome. Everybody, I've been going to the zoo since I was born, because I've lived here my whole life.
He was born in the zoo.
I probably I was in the great ape exhibit. What's your favorite part of the zoo? Like, doesn't have to be an animal. Like, what's your favorite
That was
area?
my exact next question.
gotta know.
Not just your favorite, but your worst one too.
Oh,
the one that
favorite and worst favorite.
Favorite?
Because you can't not have a favorite part.
Yeah, it's like you got to have a favorite area. that you-
Like not an animal, not an exhibit, because
It can be whatever. Any part of the zoo that you really enjoy, like you think is like, I love this part of the zoo.
really honestly, it has to be listening to people's stories, because everybody has a different story of how they connect to the zoo. I think there's, the zoo already lends itself to different opportunities. People can feel really connected to the animals. People can feel really connected to the conservation efforts. We have people that are architect buffs that come in, because a lot of our buildings are WPA. So there's a lot of these different areas that people will latch onto, but it's the commonality between it all. I love talking to everybody and seeing what their story is. I like to see what they've built up. People spend their entire lives creating who they are, and they put their name in front of that. Let me learn your name. Let me learn your story. Let me see how that is. Because most of the time, that means that, again, everybody has different strengths and needs. Just because you absolutely love something, you can still realize that there are things that need to be changed. And listening to those stories, you can find out what people really enjoy, what's really worked for them, but also, how can we improve? How can we be better? Because we are such a major point of, gathering in the community. Let's make it accessible to everybody. And I can only really do that if I'm listening to everybody's story. So that's probably my favorite, whether it be an employee, volunteer, guest, somebody that comes from, out of country that comes to our zoo. I love hearing, why did you come to our zoo? What did you hear that you were like, yeah, we got to go to the Toledo Zoo? That would probably be my favorite part. Least favorite? I don't know. And that's not really just me being like completely biased towards the zoo, but
No, that's cool.
I think we could be open longer. I can't do anything about that. We gotta, people can't work 70 hours a week. We gotta have off time for the people that are making the dream come true for everybody else that's coming through.
Yep, that's true.
The gates. But I think we could be more accessible. I think there are things that we can definitely improve upon to build upon the point of saying that, you can absolutely love something, but see that there is opportunity for growth. Let's
Now,
do that.
Are the animals there? Do they have a nightlife? Like at night, are the cheetahs like creeping around?
Oh, is it like Madagascar
Yeah,
and they start
like,
having
you know.
parties? I can't say for a fact that they do that, but every single animal has indoor and outdoor access, so they definitely have the options to, I guess, party up if they want to.
Well, those are a lot better answers than I would have given. I would be like, my least favorite part is how hot the reptile house is. It just feels moist in there.
Yeah, those reptiles definitely do love the heat, being cold-blooded and all.
I'm just glad you didn't say like my favorite is the exit. My least favorite is the entrance. like, dude, the zoo might hear this.
I really never mind. I'm not gonna say it. So I think this would be a good opportunity to play a little game that we like to play here on the Friends for Life podcast called Tony.
Rapid fire. fire.
Rapid fire.
Rapid
Okay.
Yes,
All right.
rapid fire is a 3-question scenario, and which I go over would you rather scenarios. Did I say enough scenarios?
He's never said it right. Since
can
we
never say
started
it
the
right,
show.
like-
this is like our 80th episode, and he's never said it
One
right.
day, though. One day.
One day, and I'll do it one good time, and then we'll
That's
just repeat it every time. So, with that being said, would you rather sing like an opera star naked or play the guitar like a rock star in a tuxedo?
It has to be the latter. That sounds metal. Why wouldn't I? Like, look nice going up there, have long hair, headbang, shred on a guitar. That's my option.
Have clothes on.
yeah. All right, that's a good one too.
Yeah.
That should have been probably what I said first, right?
I love it. Would you rather be maced in the face or maced in your pants? Yeah, these are getting weird.
Face?
yeah,
Face.
yeah, there you go.
I don't know if I actually have a reason for that, but I'll go face.
It hurt.
I hate that
All right.
question.
Because we know which one you'll pick. Paul, both. No. Would you rather feed a lion covered in blood or feed a giraffe lettuce in a lettuce wedding dress?
I want a lettuce wedding dress, huh?
Yes, it has to be enough lettuce to.
I'll choose the giraffe.
Yes,
That would probably just tickle.
friendly.
that'll be
Yeah.
and it'll be cool pictures. Like you'll have a veil of lettuce.
I feel like all these questions this round were like very obvious choices. Like, would you rather get eaten by a lion or get like licked by a giraffe? Like, I know which one I would pick.
But I mean, are the lions docile? Like, if you go in there covered in blood, are they really just going to be like, I want to eat you? Or, I mean, like, do they feed? How do they feed?
I'm not messing in with animal instinct. No, the same thing. Even if you have something like a guinea pig, like anything with a mouth can bite, I'm not going to take that chance. No, I appreciate that they are easy questions. That made it a lot easier. I don't have to have the dead air to just be like staring off into space, like having existential thoughts of what is
Which
the
is
right
the whole
answer.
point of rapid fire anyway.
Yeah.
Fun fact, this is another thing that you get at the zoo. You just get weird animal facts. Fun fact, giraffes actually have like sunscreen tongues because their tongue is already out a lot. So it's almost purplish bluish.
Yeah,
as
I
a
noticed.
sunscreen. Yeah.
I did the feeding thing at the zoo, and I fed them, and it touched my finger, and I was like, ew. And I looked for sanitizer, and I just said, get over it. But it was so cool. Like, I mean, I'm feeding a giraffe. Like, there's people who will go their whole entire lives and not do that. So I think that's pretty awesome.
I'm just kind of upset that I didn't think about, we should have done this podcast in like the tower and the zip line thing. Like that would have
Yeah.
been way cooler.
My wife and I did that some years back.
You know what?
Let's redo it.
Let's just run it back. Let's
Run
just
it
do it.
back.
Let's do it again. We'll
Yes.
bring it all out. We'll make sure that it happens.
Well, we don't want to keep you here all day. You got a lot of work to do, I'm sure, as does everyone that comes on the podcast. Question, we'll do a final question and we'll let you kind of let people know where to learn more. Is there any projects that you specifically are working on that you're really excited about? Accessibility, inclusion, anything above and beyond, or that, anything that you're just excited about to be kind of have in the works?
Sure. While I can't go into major detail, I can at least say that our DEAI strategy, one of the goals that we have, one of the aspirations that we have, is a complete added accessibility hall. So there's a lot that's coming, and hopefully soon everybody will be able to see that on our webpage and also with the accessibility page. Obviously, if you're ever wondering what we have in terms of options, because it is always evolving, we're always listening, we're always trying to add new things, check out that accessibility page. That's going to keep on updating. As soon as we keep getting more and more materials, more accessibility options, it'll all be on there on the website.
Awesome. And, last question, where can people learn more about what you're doing at the zoo? I mean, everybody knows where to find the Toledo Zoo, but what you're doing specifically.
Oh yeah, anything that you want to see, again, accessibility page. If they go to the Toledo Zoo website, all the way at the bottom, accessibility is one of the button options. They can click that, they can see everything. On there is my phone extension that people can reach out to if they do have any questions about accommodations or just requests in general. People can email me, kevin.fong, Fong, at toledozoo.org. If you have any comments, concerns, things that you feel like the zoo could improve upon for accessibility, let me know. Again, we're always listening, and we can only do it. We can only be community partners if we are involving the community.
I want to say one more thing, man. Kudos for you to be such a young man. I'm sure sometimes you have to do a lot of fighting to get your point across and heard, but from hearing and seeing what you are accomplishing, just keep it up, man. You will be rewarded in more ways than possible, and the individuals who you're doing it for will be rewarded in more ways than possible. You're finding value in what you do, and it's tough sometime in this field, but
I appreciate it. It's always worth it whenever I get to see the smiling faces of the zoo teens and the other employees. So yeah, thank you.
yeah.